Assalamu alaikum, family. Peace be unto you. You're tuned in to the Sajdah Morning Coffee Talks, where we talk about life, love, and business. We're going to chat a little bit about what I've been up to this last week or so. And then we're going to go into a hot topic, not even a hot topic, but a material topic that is impactful for us as Black entrepreneurs. So be a friend, tell a friend, and I'll be right back after a few short commercials and a beautiful prayer.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judgest, and none can judge against Thee, and he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee, and I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
All right, assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you, family. Sorry for that little technical difficulty. Bear with me. I got the sexy deep voice because I got a little cold I'm battling through. Something I think I probably picked up last weekend. I was at a festival. You know how that goes. Wow, I have some stuff to talk about today. I definitely want to talk about these tariffs. Okay. And I wrote up a whole set of notes and researched a bunch of stuff last night that I want to talk to you all about here today. But I want to tell you, I went through, I think, like a spiritual portal this past week. It started off with me having to take a stand on something based on my beliefs and my spiritual father, who is important in everything to me, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So it started there, and just speaking out loud that I am unapologetically with him. It started something where it's like there's no option. There's no, but it started there. And then I went the very next day to our Native Omaha Day festival. I spoke at a business luncheon, did a book signing, and spent time with family and friends. And it was very interesting for me. I actually had not been back since my dad passed in 2009. I don't think. I may have gone back, and I think we went back because he was inducted and he was the Nebraska Basketball Hall of Fame, or little things like that, but um, not back to like really retrace some footsteps. And we went to the home where my grandmother lived, which is basically where I grew up. And it was interesting to have come into fruition this statement that I make all the time, where I say, we're everything and nothing at the same time, right? You hear me say that. I'm everything and nothing at the same time. So I'm everything, Allah, always, everywhere, connected, so much so to where I'm nothing. And when I went, and the reason why I say that, starting with the stance that I had to take on behalf of my spiritual father, which happened the day before I left, to going from that into, and let me go back to that, because I've had to take strong stances before, especially in business, but it was something about this one that was very different. And as it comes to me, I'll share it just for example and growth purposes, for everybody. So that happened. And then I got on the plane that very next morning and went to Omaha. And there was something about that happened spiritually, like literally standing on the stairs where my mom and I were standing on the stairs. My brother was taking a picture, but standing on those stairs and sorry, you guys, I'm battling this cold. Like I said, somebody at the festival got me. Standing on those stairs at the space where I remember first consciously knowing and talking to God. It's interesting because in those moments, I just became very proud of myself, very proud of my parents, just very proud. And here's why. For many of us, there are so many times, and I'm going to get to these tariffs in a minute, but I just have to get this off my chest. For many of us, there are so many times when we feel in our gut that we should do something. And it's not even that deep. It's just something we want to do. It just comes in as a light desire, like I like this or I want to do that. But then there's other people who come along and then try to convince you that something's wrong with your decision, or you shouldn't have done it that way, or this makes no sense, or whatever, right? And then you switch. And for me, most times I follow what's in my gut and what I believe Allah wants me to do. Whenever I did not, and there are times that I can think of for sure when I did not, I later regretted it. And so I tried to transform that regretful energy into a learning experience, right? And I go down that road because when we think about, I know for me, I think about being from young parents. And for them to excuse me, battle who they wanted to be as young people with being parents, battling, because as a young person, you're building that brand, you're doing that thing, to following their minds when it came to rearing us as children. And I don't think that we understand how powerful that is from an epigenetic standpoint, because it just flows forward. It's contagious. It's like a pooling. So when I was standing on those stairs and I think Mom said, walk up, go onto the land, because I want the land to build something in my grandmother's name. I was thinking some beautiful townhomes. Excuse me, guys. I just remember my brother was teasing me about being stung by a bee. And for him to talk about the sting by the bee thing is so powerful, because how I got stung by the bee is because I went and sat in the middle of the flowers. I must have been, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7. But I went and sat in the middle of the flowers. She had these peonies and these other flowers that I could see, but I can't think of their names. And I sat there, and what I know now is that I think I was kind of meditating or talking to God, but I would have these moments where I wanted to just sit and feel this energy. And I remember discovering that in that yard at that house. And so that's what made things on this trip so powerful, because, and then as I'm talking, I had a sense of pride in myself. And I said, you did good. You followed your mind a lot of times, and it saved you a lot, and it helped you a lot. I'm saying all that to say that it put me in a new place. And so as I'm wrapping up the second book and moving forward with some things, I'm there. I was even having a conversation with the director of the Great Plains Black Museum, and we were talking, and we were like, look, the history is the history. And I repeated what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, that there are some people that have the gift of prophecy because of their careful study of history. And then there are those that have the gift of prophecy. I'm paraphrasing it. He didn't say it quite like that. But, and so we were talking about the importance of history when it comes to prophecy and strategy. And say, you know what? We have to understand, and not just in the case of, for me, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House, the history is the history. Same thing with yourself. The history is the history. Your family history is what it is. And so when you look at it from that lens, you can say, I can grow from this. I can see where I made this decision and this worked out, or that decision, or it makes you prophetic. But I think the best way to see that statement that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made come into fruition is to look at it in context with your own life. That's just what I say. Okay. All right. So let me get into these tariffs. But anyway, that's this week. Oh, Sunday, we're doing a very special replay of remember you guys, I had this whole download of removing poverty consciousness from our DNA. And we did a webinar. And so we're going to show that again Sunday night at 7 p.m. Central Time. So go into the QR code here. You'll see the commercial. I'll play it again on the way out. Go to the QR code and use it. And then it's going to be $10 to attend. I don't think you want to miss it. I'm telling you, it's very, very powerful. But that's Sunday at 7 p.m. Central Time. And some of these webinars that I've been doing over the years, we're going to start replaying them, leading up to the book launch, to the new book launch, just so that you can get acclimated with the language and some of the ways in which I'm applying my foundational spirituality to new topics or expanding upon topics that aren't popularly spoken of. And one of those is this epigenetic, this slavery coding, this poverty consciousness, this stuff that we drag along throughout our historical sojourn that in some cases we need to shed or just straight up reprogram. That's another thing that just going through your own personal history, retracing footsteps can help you do. It'll help you just release some old coding, some old stuff that you probably forgot about that is just still there. So much of that I just left. I left right there on the streets of Omaha at the parade. I just left and shed all this spiritual residue. I call it residue of your development, right? It's like you're building, you're evolving, you're building a house. And I'm one of those persons, I've been blessed to evolve leaps and bounds in short periods of time. You're going to leave some residue, right? There's going to be some waste materials. Well, many of us are still carrying those spiritual waste materials with us. And sometimes it takes retracing those footsteps to go, you know what? Let it go. Sometimes there are people in your lives that are spiritual residue. And I know that probably sounds really bad, but you're dragging a relationship along and maybe the person don't even really like you. Maybe you don't really like them. Maybe they're just weird. Maybe they're manipulative. Maybe they're identity thieves. Maybe they're spiritual vampires. But for whatever reason, you've been carrying them. And sometimes retracing those footsteps will help you to know, like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Right? So that happens as well. But go retrace those footsteps. You can just leave it all there. And if you're in a position where you can't go back to your hometown or go back to your college or wherever you had a lot of development, then just go somewhere and just take a walk and just leave that stuff right there and come back new. All right, let's talk about these tariffs, y'all. I'm gonna get off of that. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna play this video. Did you all know that tariffs are now averaging 18.3%? which raises costs on goods from over 100 countries. So in 100 countries, because of tariffs that have been in place in some cases since 1934, it raised costs in over 100 countries. And now all these new tariffs are adding to it. And it's impactful, especially for us as Black entrepreneurs, if we're in retail, if we're in beauty, if we're in e-commerce. It just means that we're going to be paying higher costs for imported goods. And one of the things that I'm studying now, I've got some interesting materials, is the import and export business that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad started. So this is what made me start looking at costs and tariffs and things like that. So let me cue up this video. I'm going to show you this video, and then we're going to go down to this stuff and take a look at it by industry and talk about some of these numbers. Again, to raise your awareness about how these things may be impacting your business and what you're doing. And I'll tell you what businesses I have in ventures that I'm working on that have been impacted by these kinds of things. And then we'll talk about some solutions on how we can work around it. Okay. I'll try to get through these stats fast, but I want you guys to check out this video. So let me get it here. Don't forget, while we're doing this, sign up for Sunday night. All right. You guys should be able to see that. All right, here we go. This is our report on these tariffs, so you guys get up to speed.
President Trump's efforts to remake the global economy entered a new phase today as U.S. import taxes, otherwise known as tariffs, reached their highest level since the Great Depression. Joining us now, NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans and University of Michigan professor of economics and public policy, Justin Wolfers. Welcome back from vacation, Justin. Christine, how are the markets reacting to this today?
You've got stocks down a little bit today, but really it's been a resilient reaction overall to what has been an absolute remaking of the global trade world order, right? And so there are plenty of people out there who think that markets just have been a little bit too blasé about what the potential implications could be. But look, you've got 6 months of this drama back and forth about tariffs, and then now about a number of hours since these tariffs, these biggest tariffs, have really been in effect here. So I think the bigger note, you'll notice it more on your grocery bill probably in the near term than your retirement fund, honestly.
Is it looking likely that the markets will continue to soften the blow or absorb this?
It's unclear. There's a lot of investment because of AI. There's a lot of energy in the tech sector that might be masking other unease. We have seen some companies like the big automakers that have they've said they're taking billion-dollar hits because of tariffs. At some point, they'll try to maybe start passing that on to consumers, and maybe that's what investors are looking forward to. They're looking ahead to maybe lower interest rates down the road, and maybe these companies starting to share the hit they're taking from tariffs and not maybe take it in the corporate earnings alone.
And that is the point that so many people are paying attention to. When are we all going to be paying for this? Justin, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent defended the tariff policies today on Morning Joe. He touted the return of trillions of dollars in investments in domestic manufacturing. Let's listen.
We are trying to rebalance trade in America's favor. President Trump has said, and I've said, we want to bring back the high precision manufacturing jobs. We want to get rid of these big deficits that we have with countries that have created these big surpluses, and the gutted our manufacturing base. Right. And have been terrible for American workers.
So, Justin, will investments from Apple and other main companies bring back American manufacturing? And what's the timeline, if so?
Well, Ariel, I've got great news for you, which is I'm willing to announce right now on MSNBC that my family is going to invest $101 billion in the United States. Tim Cook, it was just $100 billion, but you have it just as much in writing from me that it'll be $101 billion from my family. And my kids, they want to bring back toy manufacturing. So Oliver and Matilda have each said that they're going to invest themselves another $200 billion in bringing toys back to America. So it's not just the Trump administration. So you sound skeptical
about all of this, is what you're saying.
I'm saying that MSNBC is delivering manufacturing jobs for Americans.
Okay, but answer the question. How long could it be if we're going to bring jobs back to America? You see Apple investing. How long could it be till we see the benefits of that?
So here's the thing. If I'm going to invest money in America, it's going to be based on my expectations of the future profitability of doing business in America. If tariffs work, it's by raising that future expectation. So that means what the White House would have to do is convince executives, not that tariffs are going to be high tomorrow or the next day, but the tariffs are going to be high in 10 years' time or in 20 years' time or 30 years' time, or at least cement has set in my manufacturing plant. And the problem is that this is a president who raises tariffs on Monday and reduces them on Tuesday. So the reality is that having a chaotic tariff regime that's unpredictable. And here's another point. Normally what you do with a trade deal is you put it through Congress, which makes it very hard to reverse. This president hasn't done that. So the next president can literally, with the stroke of a pen, with an executive order, undo all of these tariffs. As a result of that, there is not a manufacturing plant in America that's going to get built on the back of these tariffs. And what that means for families at home is we're going to get all the costs of these tariffs. We're going to get higher inflation and pay higher prices at the store, but we're not going to get the benefits because they're not reliable. No one's going to be bringing jobs back home.
Yeah, and the president facing legal challenges to these tariffs right now. We should remind our.
So I wanted to stop right there because I disagree with that. They should hire me to be on some of these teams. I disagree with that because if companies can be convinced to invest in manufacturing plants right now with the tariffs being high, and then you leave it high and people suffer a little bit, which could very well be what they're going to do. And then all of a sudden, again, like they said, with the stroke of a pen, you just reduce the tariffs. Well, all of a sudden, those prices that began to climb while the tariffs were high begin to plummet. So now you create this buying frenzy because all of a sudden now, even if they made us go through holidays, Christmas holidays, with all the prices being high, and then all of a sudden just drop them down during the first quarter of next year, you're going to get a buying frenzy. People are going to just start buying like crazy. Like, oh my God, it was only X amount of dollars. I got it for, supposed to be $100. I got it for $10. All of a sudden, you're going to see a buying frenzy, which then ultimately is going to encourage these manufacturing plants that have moved over here. Now, he may be right for some industries, but depending on the industry, all of a sudden, if it's something in electronics, he mentioned the toy industry in his joke. If it's something like that, you may very well get a run on that when those prices plummet, if with the stroke of a pen, you remove the tariffs. That's just, people are going to go out and buy. If there was a popular toy that was $1,000 when the tariffs were high, then all of a sudden what's going to happen? The price is going to go down. Instead of it being $1,000, maybe it becomes $99. That's a big jump, but I'm using that for illustrative purposes. Then what very well could mean then is that, okay, everybody's going to go out and buy because now I can afford 10 of those when I used to only be able to get one. Or then there was some people who couldn't afford it at all. And so now they can go and get it. So you can create this buying frenzy by playing around with these tariffs. So I disagree with him. There are likely some manufacturers who are willing to invest money either because they kind of know that this is how things are going to go, or they have people in their company, analysts and people who have predicted that this is how it's going to go. But I could see them saying, yeah, let's invest in a plant. And then, because they know that those tariffs are going to likely go away at some point. Now, let's say the tariffs never go away. But then what'll happen is that the economy will adjust and we'll just get used to that high price. We'll start to develop alternative markets here in the States. We'll be doing more doing for self. So we're going to talk about that a little bit here. Let's deal with these tariffs when it comes to, if you are in the business of apparel and footwear, like selling clothes or shoes. Okay, here's the impact. Clothing and footwear imports are seeing dramatic price hikes. So shoes are up 39%. So you're going to be paying almost 40% higher, more money, if you will, for your shoes. Apparel, meaning clothes, are up 37%. Okay. The long-term effect, longer than a year, they think it'll be somewhere around 20%. Again, my concept still applies. If with the stroke of a pen, there is a tariff that was put in place that raised shoe prices by 40%. Okay. So you got $100 pair of shoes that's now $400, or some clothing item. And then with the stroke of a pen, you remove some of those tariffs, and that $400 shoe that used to be $100 now goes back down to $200, $250. You're going to create a buying frenzy. So it's a little bit of hedging, instead of playing into the emotional doom and gloom. If they stay high, they high. People will eventually get what they need to afford them. Okay. See, Black-owned boutique selling imported shoes with a typical 40% markup may see that their margin to erode unless some of those other costs are absorbed either by the customer or something like that. So most of the places where you see this tariff being impactful is when you're getting goods from China, which is almost everything. I was in China and I literally had an anxiety attack because it was the first time I realized that, whoa, we don't manufacture anything. Everything was done in China. I was on a commerce trip and we went to so many plants, from battery plants to mopeds. I mean, all these different plants, and I was like blown away. Or Vietnam, if you're getting stuff from Vietnam, there's a heavy tariff. Bangladesh is also a place. Those are the top 3 places that make apparel and accessories. We're going to talk about how you can combat that later. I just want to go through this. What about the beauty and personal care? Okay, so beauty products are facing about a 25.8% average tariff. And in worst case scenarios, certain goods may incur up to 145% in tariffs. So this industry is really impactful. I know I faced it with, you all know how with my Sajdah Oud oil, I use these really cute, unique glass bottles. The prices of those are going through the roof. And so we are looking at, do we repackage it and make it look more American, like with a little box, with the logo on it, and then just a plain bottle on the inside, because of the tariffs. So I'm just waiting to try to see how it's going to play out. But if the tariffs in the beauty and personal care industry stay high, then we're going to switch to some different packaging. But that's just my own personal example. And I won't share the numbers, but let me give you another example. If you have a hair care product that you bought for $10 previously, it could now cost between $13 and $5 just in the landed cost. This is for your cost as the wholesaler. So this will reduce your margins down drastically. So you're going to be paying more for those items that you're reselling here in the States. Okay. China, India, Cambodia, Brazil, any sources of weave, braiding hair, products, beauty tools like combs and hot combs and curlers and blow dryers. That's where you're going to see a lot of these costs go up. A lot of increased costs. All right. Let's talk about electronics and hardware. All right. Items like laptops and tablets from China may see up to 60% tariffs. That'll raise our prices as consumers by as much as 46% for a laptop and 26% for a smartphone. Okay, so a $500 device could effectively retail for $730 if tariffs, shipping, and markups are passed through to you as a customer. those things made in China. South Korea is a big manufacturer of electronics. I was also on that same commerce mission. I went to South Korea and visited a lot of the plants, the Samsung plant, the Hyundai plant, which is not just cars, it's escalators and elevators, battery plants, and then also Taiwan. So any of those places, if you are an electronics reseller, okay, you should be thinking about how you're going to hedge yourself against all these price increases. Are you going to buy now with the assumption that they're only going to just get higher? Are you going to buy now with the assumption that I just need to have it on hand? Are you going to wait? Are you going to go with lower inventory levels because you got to do your deep research. I'm just giving you a hint. But are you going to go with lower inventory numbers because you anticipate that because this is such a heavy industry that with the stroke of a pen, these tariffs may just go away, and then your price is going to plummet, and then you'll be able to buy more. So you just got to think about it. You got to study your industry so that you can hedge. Okay. Now let's talk about consumer goods. Those of us selling food, beverages, specialty items. We can expect prices to rise in coffee, bananas, fish, beer and liquor if you sell that, okay, from 10 to 15%. That's how much we can expect them to go up, okay? So restaurants, specialty grocers, BIPOC-owned cafes, where they import goods, right? You'll see like 7 to 15% higher cost of goods sold, okay? So it depends on these. And this is impactful for me because I buy a lot of specialty things. I like to eat in specialty restaurants that have certain types of products, and I like to purchase specialty items. So this is important. I also am working on a grocery store concept, and so this really is impactful. So something to think about, is this the time to get into that business? Do we wait, and what factors do we take into consideration as we determine what to do? Okay, then there's the automotive and auto parts. Okay, some of us selling automotives or cars, car parts. Okay, translation. You're going to probably see impact because there's a solid 25% tariff on cars and car parts from Canada and Mexico, though. So that's because things like steel, aluminum, they have steep, duties or taxes on them. So Black-owned auto repair shops, you may see slightly more parts, or shops where you customize cars. You're going to see the price of that go up. So study your industry and understand what's happening in your specific industry for that particular service or product that you sell. Okay. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the country specific tariffs, so that you, if you're getting items from these particular countries, even if I didn't talk about your industry, or even if you're not sure, it could be a place for you to research. Okay. So places like Brazil, India, and Switzerland, there's about a 50% tariff on goods coming from there. So they're 50% higher. So if they cost $100, it's now $150. If you get goods from Laos, it's 39%. Goods from South Africa is 30%. This affected me because I love South African fashion. I love African fashion, period. But I love, shout out to Nano Wax and this, this cardigan I have on. But South Africa, Nano Wax is in Benin, but African fashion in essence. But I have tons of pieces that I bought when I was traveling to Africa. This is impactful for me because I just had a memory of something. That's what paused me. Because I'm looking to create some brands and do some importing from South Africa. And now there's a 30% tariff. And so we got to look at what's going to happen. What's the long-term effect of that? Is that going to last? How long it's going to be here? Blah, 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 right? So if you get things from Canada, okay, almost everything from Canada has a 35% tariff. If you get things from the European Union, from Japan and South Korea, you're about 15%. Unless you are in the electronics business, it's going to be a little higher. The UK is about 10%, 20% for Vietnam, Indonesia, Pakistan, Philippines. So a lot of us that like specialty items have to consider that. Okay. Real quickly, before we get ready to get out of here, let me go again on the industries. Electronics, okay, some of them are up 100%. So if you are in the electronics business, start looking at that, incorporating that into your inventory strategy, your pricing strategy. Do some research. Talk to your suppliers, okay? Don't just be buying stuff off of people, communicating with them on WhatsApp. Get a conversation. And if they can't have a conversation with you because there's a language barrier or whatever, you better get somebody to translate or don't do business with them. Sometimes we get so thirsty. Some of the smaller purchases or maybe a one-off and you're on Alibaba and you can't really communicate and it's just, email, that might fly. But if you're talking about moving into that higher level with purchases and revenue streams, those $1 million revenues, you better start thinking twice because it's a different vulture that you got to deal with at $1 million versus at 100,000 or 50,000. It's a whole different devil. It's like they say you judge a man or a woman by their enemy. Look at the enemy and you can tell what's going on, what valuable resource they have that they're bringing to the table. If you are relying on anything connected to aluminum, copper, auto parts, you're looking at a 25 to 50% increase in pricing, depending upon the category. Again, research. Beauty and personal care, we talked about that. They did a weighted average. It's about 30%. Okay. Some goods from China, though, face 145%. They say it's been reduced temporarily by 30%. But like I said, you see these tariff things going up and down. It's really impacting because a lot of these are direct to consumer products. So, and the consumers that you're targeting are not necessarily sophisticated business people, but they may be sophisticated consumers. So you're talking about, that young sister who's buying weave by the bulk because she does hair in her basement. When she sees it drop down to a certain price, you can probably manipulate her spending because she's going to go out and buy a bunch of it because she want to be the one that have it on the block when everybody else is out. Not saying that there's anything wrong with her strategy. I'm just using that as an example. And then again, clothing and materials, this is what we were talking about. You're going to see big increases of that, about 40%. Okay. Now, let me give you some strategy on how we can combat some of this. If you guys don't have any questions about where we are on this so far. Okay, let's talk about some quick alternatives before we go. We got about 15 minutes. Start sourcing in alternative places. Okay, I want you all to attend networking events, exchange business cards, because if you're a supplier and somebody else is a producer, you may want to start sourcing to other Black-owned businesses. Why? Because while in the past, the Black-owned business may have had to charge you a little bit more because maybe they don't buy in bulk like that Chinese producer that you're working with overseas. Well, because of some of these 40% and some of these 100% markups, their prices are now on par with that Black entrepreneur down the street. And guess what? Now you can start to, now that you can calm down over the price. See, it was your money psychology that was creating the deceptive intelligence that made you say, now when I can get it for $1 over here, I ain't messing with Willie Nim for $3. Forget that. Well, now that you can quiet some of that money conversation because your Chinese supplier is $3 and so is he, because he's making his. Now you can think of the other benefits for doing trade and commerce with your brother or sister. You extend the dollar, the amount of time the dollar is in our community. Okay. You are feeding a family that looks like you. You're helping someone that looks like you. You're building your community that chances are 9 times out of 10, if you're buying in bulk from Mr. Willie, then if you need a 30-day line of credit, excuse me, you're more likely to get it from Mr. Willie than your Chinese partner, especially now because they don't know what these tariffs are going to do. They don't know if they're going to go up and down because all this is happening with the stroke of a pen. I hope y'all getting this. Some of y'all like, well, look, I ain't no builder. I ain't got time for this. If you're not a builder, learn, because you're either going to have a friend that's a builder or you may become a builder one day. But if you're a builder, you get where I'm coming from. Builders, we're here. All right. So I want you to think about considering other Black-owned manufacturers if you're in the clothing or textile business. Instead of running over to China, I'm not a big fan of manufacturing in China. I spend a lot of time in the manufacturing plants and stuff over there. I don't like how easy it is for them to create knockoffs of your brand. I don't like how easy it is for them to clone your website and you don't even know because they get your IP address. And when you try to go to a website, you think you're the only one out there in the world that makes this particular outfit. But they got people right in your circle who think they're buying from you, but they're buying from them. It's a whole set of drama. I am not a big fan of modeling the Chinese manufacturing way. I almost can't stand to see it. That's a whole nother story, but I'm not a big fan of that because it lacks the humanity. It lacks the spirituality. It's a lot of control. I'm not here for that today. We're going to keep going. But anyway, consider this. Consider going to Mexico. Honduras has manufacturing plants. Some people say consider the Dominican Republic because they are partners with the USA. You can also contact the Department of Commerce. And even if you decide to take a trip overseas, I would suggest contacting them. They'll help you figure out who you should meet with and who you can legitimize, because you can lose your socks messing around with a lot of these foreign companies because there's no recourse like there may be in the States. If you're in the beauty and personal care business, again, there are other places like South Korea and Japan where the tariffs are a little lower, but this may be an opportunity to embrace your local skincare maker or developer or manufacturer. This is an opportunity to look inside because your prices are going to be the same. And guess what? You're going to feel so much better manufacturing that product in a place where you can get to them. You can go to their plant. You can stop by. You can have conversations. You can call somebody on the phone and talk. You're not compromising your business practices just because it's so much cheaper. And in the beauty and personal care, I think they say something like 60% of the products that are manufactured in China for skincare are toxic. Ain't that crazy? Do some research on that. I may not have that number right, but check it out. If you have electronics and hardware, you want to think about maybe opening a refurbishing business, a recycling business. I think that's going to get really big during this time because right now people can't afford to go buy $1,000 phone, or if they can't afford it, they don't want to. So refurbishing, recycling. Sometimes you can get certain components from some areas where the tariffs are cheaper. but recycling and reusing those parts. Food and specialty items. Here I say, look, you can start leaning on your local grown items. We have farmers markets everywhere. There are people who grow fruits and vegetables know that when you harvest, you get more than what you can use at one time. And they oftentimes are willing to sell those excess items to you if you're in the food and specialty business. So if you're a baker and you make apple pies, something with fresh apples or fresh fruit, maybe you can get a lot of that fruit and can it, and then reuse it as you make your pies down the line. Maybe you can get 1,000 apples from somebody's tree, because trees produce a lot. Let's say you can get 1,000 apples and you say, man, what am I going to do with all these apples? Well, you could can them. And if you're making 10 pies today, you got enough for, however many pies off into the future. Just a thought. Metals and auto parts. This is a tough one because you got heavy tariffs on Canada, heavy on Mexico. So when we start talking about metal, again, you better start getting into recycling. Anybody who knows how to manipulate metal and make it production ready, this is something to consider. Okay. Identify these domestic producers for your core products. Okay. Contact, local chambers and things like that and see if you can find somebody local. We're going to have to start going local with this stuff. And I honestly believe that we're going to find that doing business is much better and much easier when we can, well, I won't say that. Let me correct that, because sometimes it's easier, especially for those of us that don't want to talk to nobody, to go, well, I can get 1,000 of these widgets for $1 from China. I ain't got to say nothing to nobody. They just show up on my doorstep. Versus for $2.50, I got to go down and talk to Miss Janine. And so some people may not like that, but I will tell you that if we are becoming more conscious when it comes to where our dollar goes and what kind of energy our dollar follows and creates, I think this is going to be a better alternative for us. Okay. Study your tariff data. Okay. And use it to strategize. Okay. Think about tracking tariffs, and there's websites out here that track it where you can figure out where the low tariff countries are so that you can think about, okay, I can manufacture from there. Almost everybody has online options. Okay. And just keep diversifying, do some deliberate diversifications. If you have a product that you're getting, you may want to get some from China, some from South Korea, some from Japan. I'm just using those as an example, some from Mexico, and vary it a little bit, because you just never know when somebody's going to say, hey, we out, or it's going to take us 4 months to get you your shipment. Okay. And I think as a strategy, when you see that these tariffs have paused, because they are pausing oftentimes, or when they stop, buy up your stuff and stock up. So you have it on hand, because you never know what's going to happen later. All right. Okay. I thank you all for listening. Thank you for bearing through with me with my code. Sorry for the coughs in between. I appreciate you all very much. Thank you, and thank you. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. I don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but those are usually the best shows. Excuse me. Those are the best shows normally. But yeah, if you have any questions, you can always, y'all know how to reach me. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and please support the completion of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House Museum. We are, oh my God, I am bursting at the seams to tell you all what we have planned, but I cannot let the cat out of the bag. I'm just excited. I'm bursting at the seams, but I can't wait. Anyway, and then sign up Sunday for the replay of Removing Poverty Consciousness from Your DNA. I think that go to my Facebook pages, Instagram. There's a commercial. There's a poster that I posted. Use that QR code. Get yourself registered. Get set up. Sunday, 7 p.m. Central Time. I'll talk a little bit more about it tomorrow. It's just hard for me to go into it without giving the whole thing away. You guys got to go and sit down and take some notes and just do your own self-healing and figure out what is in my vibrational crawl that could potentially be holding me back. And do the work. It'll pay off. Okay. Let's see. I think that's it. I'll see you all, inshallah, tomorrow morning. Peace and blessings, family. Don't go anywhere.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who in my judgment is the master historian, taught us that of all our studies, history is the most attractive, and it is best qualified to reward the researcher. History is most attractive. Why should history be most attractive? Because history is the recorded time of the human family in its struggle to overcome obstacles. There is no life that is without struggle. The Holy Quran teaches us that man, meaning man and woman, is made to face difficulties. And after difficulty comes ease. But it is history that guides us through difficulty. For if you know how people who had difficulty yesterday got through, and if your difficulty is somewhat similar, then today we also can get through if we follow the guidance of history. This is why Carter G. Woodson and many of our black giants fought for black people to know our history. Because in not knowing our history, we don't have a guide. And without a guide, we are lost. No wonder the